Swung on, hit high and deep to center. Revere on the run, looking up, it is gone! Can you believe it? A Hollywood script for Jim Thome. Number 604, a bomb to dead center. We are tied at 4.
Welcome to Fans First, a sports podcast where your voice matters most. Hosted by Hall of Fame sportscaster Jim Powell. This is the show that puts fans at the heart of the conversation. Whether you're cheering in the stands, screaming at the TV, or debating with friends about the latest trades, Fans First is here to amplify your thoughts, your insights, and your love for the game.
Hello and welcome to Fans First, a sports podcast. I'm Jim Powell. I'm your host. I'm honored to be in that role again today. But first, we've got some great news. We have a wonderful new sponsor for Fans First, a sports podcast. It's the Georgia Advisory Group. It's a longtime, very successful financial services firm with over 120 years of combined experience. It's run by Dave Dooley. He's the founder. He's been there from the beginning. And Dave is a big sports fan, and he's kind of built his business kind of like you would build an all-star team. He's got a Georgia Advisory Group riddled with all-stars like a full-time CPA, investment advisors, money managers, insurance experts, estate planning professionals. They have their clients covered in every way. One of the many things I love about the Georgia Advisory Group is that it is a fiduciary, which means it has a legal and ethical duty to put their clients' interests first. Lots of us get nervous about trusting someone else to oversee our hard-earned money, but I have known Dave Dooley and his family for decades, and I can tell you he is a rock-solid human being and someone I trust implicitly. Once you get to meet him, you'll quickly understand why his firm has been so successful at helping people make the most of what they have. You don't stay in business this long in a city like Alpharetta, Georgia, unless you are a very respected person, and Dave is certainly that. He and his team sincerely care more about their clients than they do even about themselves. But don't just take my word for it. Go check them out. The Georgia Advisory Group can be reached at 770-746-6511. That's 770-746-6511, located in the heart of downtown Alpharetta, Georgia. Hello and welcome to another edition of Fans First, a sports podcast. I'm grateful to be your host again today, and I'm even more grateful to welcome in a very special guest. One of the great broadcasters in the history of Major League Baseball, was inducted into the National Baseball Hall of Fame in Cooperstown just what I'm sure for him seems like 5 minutes ago. So Tom Hamilton, who is the longtime voice of the Guardians and the Indians, richly deserved honor for you, my friend.
Thank you.
I have to point out to folks who don't know as much about broadcasting as we do that made you the 25th recipient of the Ford C. Frick Award for Excellence in Broadcasting. You've got 36 years as voice of the Indians and Guardians. You've called over 100 postseason games. Now that's something I'm really jealous of. And including 3 World Series, and a 7-time winner of the Ohio Sportscaster of the Year. And the only reason it's not like 100 times is because they had to spread it around and try and help some other people out too. But Tom Hamilton, thank you so much for joining us. Congratulations. What an unbelievable honor for you.
Thank you, Jim. Great to be with you. Thank you for the kind words. Yeah, unbelievable doesn't begin to sum it up. Surreal, whatever adjective you can come with. It's kind of been that way since we got the phone call from the Hall of Fame back in December. And it was an incredible week in Cooperstown, pretty much beyond any expectations, whatever they were that we had. And we're just very grateful. We know how blessed we've been to have this job and to have it here in Cleveland for 36 years. I'm from Wisconsin. My wife is from Pittsburgh. It kept us between both families so that our children were able to be around their grandparents at least more than once a year. So we've been really, really, really blessed.
You know, I loved your induction speech, by the way. We'll get to more on that in a little while. But one thing about that speech was you started running down the list of the kids and the grandkids. And I mean, your family is enormous and very special, obviously. So I want to get you to brag on them a little bit right here on Fans First as well.
Yeah, like I say, we've been really blessed with four terrific children. They're all young adults now, between the ages of 27 and 34. They're all over the country. It seems like we have a son and a daughter-in-law, and their 3-year-old and their 1-year-old that are leaving Cleveland, and he just got hired as a lead reporter for the CBS television station in San Francisco. So we're losing them this weekend. And then everybody else is out of town. The two daughters are both in Denver, one married with a 1-year-old, and our only single child is also in Denver. And then our oldest son, Nick, and his wife are in Nashville. He's still in baseball. Both boys played Division I, both played in the minor leagues, and Nick is now with the Kansas City Royals as an area scout. So again, we know how fortunate we've been, and it's all about them. You can get whatever reward you want, award, you name it, but if your family's healthy, you know how blessed you are. And it was great to spend that time with them. And, you miss a lot when, as you know, the kids are growing up, and you hope now that they have a little better understanding why maybe dad wasn't there for every event. You try to make them all as much as you can, but, it was fun for them to be a part of it, because without them, the rest of it means nothing.
Well, it's against the longest of odds that you even got out of Waterloo, Wisconsin. I mean, that is a fierce market that I turned down multiple job opportunities there because I knew I wouldn't be able to hack it, but somehow you did. And I want to find out a little bit more about your Wisconsin days. Obviously, you and your family were probably very close to the Brewers and love Bob Uecker, like we all do. And I'm sure you all made some treks into Milwaukee to see the Brewers play. And I just wanted to hear your thoughts on being there in Wisconsin, and then I want to get to the 4-H club, but I'll let you finish the first one first.
Yeah, unfortunately, I'm much older than you, Jim. So I first started going to Braves games. So before they were the Atlanta Braves, they were the Milwaukee Braves, and they left Milwaukee in 1965, and we were farmers. My mom and dad were dairy farmers, like much of Wisconsin was, and lived outside of Waterloo, which is maybe a couple of thousand people, about an hour east of Milwaukee, half hour west of Madison. So you had the benefit of being within driving distance of those two cities. And we would get to a doubleheader each summer to see Hank Aaron and Eddie Matthews and Joe Torre and Warren Spahn and Lou Burdett and those great Milwaukee Braves teams. And then when they left for Atlanta, it was devastating, because they never left because they weren't well attended. They were the first franchise in baseball history to draw 2 million fans, but the ownership at that time was greedy, and they moved to Atlanta because of the radio and television markets. And so we were without baseball until Bud Selig bought the Seattle Pilots, literally moved them to Milwaukee at the end of spring training in 1970, and the rest was history. The Brewers have been there ever since. And so for me, Jim, it is pretty much like I'm sure it was for you or any young man or woman that gets into broadcasting. You're really, I think, in a lot of ways, molded by the people you were able to listen to growing up. And I was really fortunate. We had great broadcasters in Wisconsin, starting with Earl Gillespie doing the Milwaukee Braves. And he did not go to Atlanta because he did not want to leave Wisconsin. And then he did the Packers and Badgers. And then when it was the Brewers, it was Merle Harmon, who was a phenomenal radio voice and television, along with Bob Uecker. And, Gary Bender worked in Madison before he ever became the voice of CBS. And so you had a lot of really good people to learn from when you thought maybe this would be something I would like to do someday.
People think that the baseball life and the broadcasting life is so glamorous, but you and I know better than that. And I want to ask you about what I would consider to be your really big break, which was going into and your boss at a radio station that you're trying to get your broadcasting career going, and he finally gave you a break with the 4-H club. Tell us how that unfolded and what kind of skills that brought to your bag of tricks.
Well, I tell you, Jim, it had you questioning your career choice. I was like, maybe Mom was right. I should have been maybe an accountant because it's much steadier work and it was much better paying. But yeah, I was in Watertown and was hoping to be able to do high school football, but the boss had different ideas initially. And so for people that aren't farmers or know anything about cattle, Jefferson County Fair, like all county fairs, had a 4-H competition where young boys and girls raise cattle, whether it's steers, sheep, poultry, pigs, you name it. And then they're paraded in front of judges to try to win the blue ribbon. And as I said in my Hall of Fame speech, the winning animal doesn't realize he's not really a winner. He's just next week's special at the local diner because he was the blue ribbon, and the diner could maybe charge a little bit more for that meal at lunch or that dinner. But it was 3-4 hours of live play-by-play of steers, poultry, pigs, sheep. And
Can you give us a little bit of it? Give us a little bit of your delivery on that.
Here's another steer, and by golly, this one's black and white. It too has 4 legs, very similar to all the other ones, and a tail that actually works. So that was kind of the extent of my creativity. And driving back from the fairgrounds, you're like, this wasn't the Watertown Goslings Friday night football game I was dreaming of. And you wondered if you would ever get that opportunity. But, it's much like, people playing games. I wished I was as good a player as my sons were, to even get into the minor leagues. And I wasn't, but they had to pay their dues too. And you have to in broadcasting. Everybody wants to come out of, whether it's Syracuse, University of Wisconsin, Georgia, Missouri, you name any school, Ohio University, another great journalism school, and they want to go right away to the big time. And you find out in a hurry who wants it, who doesn't, who's willing to work in small markets. And I think it was an advantage for me, Jim, growing up on a dairy farm until we were 13, moving to a town that still doesn't have a traffic light, and being willing then, working in a Watertown and Appleton, you name any of the stops along the way, those weren't step downs for me. Those were bigger cities than what I came from. And so that's how you really learned your craft, in my mind.
Well, when you talk about opportunities, I'm sure you never dreamed that you would have the opportunity to win the Ford C. Frick Award. So let's talk about the call. December 11th. Did you have any hint? Did somebody prep you before, call you? Hey, can you make sure you're by the phone at 6:00 today, or how did it unfold?
No, because I, luckily enough, have been nominated 3 other times, and this was the 4th time. And one of the things they tell you, and again, you feel very fortunate to even be nominated. When you look at the list of people that didn't get into Cooperstown, you're like, I don't even belong on this list. Why am I even being considered? But they do tell you when you get the call. I can't even remember, Jim, if it was September or October in 24, where they tell you, hey, you're one of the 10 that's been nominated. Only one of you will get a phone call on December 11th that morning. The other 9, if you don't get a phone call, you understand you weren't the winner. And because I hadn't received a phone call 3 other times, I wasn't anticipating a phone call. We were getting ready for Christmas, having kids all over the country. Those are busy weeks getting prepped. And you're excited to have the kids come back. That's more important than the phone call. And it's 11:00 in the morning. Excuse me. And by that time, you're like, oh, we didn't get a call. That's fine. And my wife was going to go to lunch with a friend. I went down into our basement to get a workout in because, again, it's 11:00. You would have been called by then. And at 11:40, 11:45 in that area, the phone rang when I was on the elliptical. And by that, you're not even thinking about it anymore. Now it's past. And I couldn't have been more stunned, Jim. And you then learn why they don't call you until they do. They don't want the word to leak out. In fact, they even told me, please, share it with your wife. And but don't call your kids, because in this day and age of social media, they want to be the ones that release the story, not have it broken on social media. So that's why I was so totally flabbergasted by that time in the morning. You're like, okay, no problem. I'm not getting that award. That's fine.
Yeah, you might have been. Maybe they were confused by the time zones. So
we're in the same time zone. So
oh, okay. Well, never mind.
They even said in 15 minutes we're going to release it. So please just hold tight. And literally, Jim, from that phone call on, it's been a whirlwind, and it really is to this point. I don't think we've been able to fully comprehend it or even grasp it. I don't think that'll happen until the season is over, when you sit back and you go through some of the scrapbooks now and the photo albums that people have put together, and, you're still thanking people. And it's, and I think the beauty of getting back into work, you focus on what's important, the job itself. But it was truly an incredible experience.
Well, we've got some nice clips of your radio calls. You have, incredible energy, always have had. The bigger the call, the better your call ends up being. And so we're going to make sure the fans get a good taste of what got Tom Hamilton into the Baseball Hall of Fame.
Swung on and hammered high, deep to left, away out of here. Swung on, hit high and deep to center. Revere on the run, looking up, it is gone! Can you believe it? A Hollywood script for Jim Thome. Number 604, a bomb to dead center. We are tied at 4.
I'm sure that, especially there in Wisconsin, I mean, we all get influenced to a certain extent by other announcers because we all listen to the other guys, or most people do. The only person who's told me that he would never listen to other announcers was Vin Scully. So
and there's a reason. When you're the best, you don't have to listen to anybody else.
He had nothing else to learn, apparently. So, it's hard not to. You want to learn take some things from other broadcasters, but not accidentally start like mimicking them. So it's a fine line to go.
And it's a great point, Jim, because you obviously were one of Bob Uecker's first partners, and then went on to great success yourself. And growing up in Wisconsin and listening to Uecke, I mean, I was listening to him when I was still in high school, and you kind of get out there once you've gone through college and whatnot, and you're kind of starting your own journey. It was, I had to consciously make an effort, not to go, get up, get out of here. It was such a great call that anybody in Wisconsin knows immediately what that means. But it was like, I can't be doing that. One, it's a slap in the face to Bob. And secondly, you're not getting hired mimicking somebody. How many of us have heard people come from the West Coast and it was like, you're not Vin Scully, so quit trying to pretend you are. And that's why I think it's so important, even though young people that are young broadcasters don't want to hear it, you need to go out and get thousands of repetitions to develop your own style and be whoever you are. And hopefully that's good enough.
Yeah, if you try and be somebody that you're not, that shows right away. And you never hear those people going into Cooperstown. One place that your family did get to go that you told a great story about during your Hall of Fame speech was your parents. Being Wisconsinites and huge Bob Uecker fans. I'm sure they always, hope that someday they'd get to meet the great Bob Uecker, who's, as you pointed out, always affable about those things and loves to meet people anyway. But tell us about the visit with your mom and your dad and why that jumped off the page at me when I heard you talking about it.
Well, and Bob was always so kind to me. And I think a lot of it had to do, he knew I was from Wisconsin. I had worked in Milwaukee before I went from Milwaukee to Columbus and then eventually to Cleveland to get the Indians job. And so, there is a connection. There aren't that many of us from Wisconsin that are, in the broadcast world, so to speak. So it's a small fraternity. And, we're very prideful of being from Wisconsin. And Bob was. I mean, the fact that Bob was born and raised in Milwaukee and really never left there except in the winters to go to Scottsdale tells you how much it meant to him to stay in his home state and in his hometown. And Mom and Dad were huge Brewer fans. And yeah, it took a while for me to even ask Bob because I just didn't want to impose on Bob, and he couldn't have been better, as you know. Mom and Dad come up. They're very outgoing people and always were. I don't think they ever met a stranger in their life. Get them into the booth to introduce them to Bob. My dad is completely awestruck. For the first time in his life, he cannot speak. And I'm like, Dad, not Mom. And Bob is going on and saying very nice things about me. And then finally says to my mom, because he knows Dad's not probably going to speak based on the reaction he's getting. He's like to my mom, he goes, well, Teresa, I'm so sorry you have to listen to me and you can't listen to Tom do the games. And my mom doesn't even hesitate. She goes, Bob, you take what you can get. And I was like, oh my God, Mom, you take what you can get. This is Bob. I'm getting them out of the booth. I'm apologizing to Bob. He's doubled over laughing because I think it's maybe the first time anyone's been honest with Bob, because normally everyone's, everyone loves Bob, but I think it was Mom's honesty that made Bob really laugh. And it was like, it was a mother again, being proud of one of her 5 children. It wouldn't have mattered which of the 5 it was. And it was just, at the time I'm horrified. It's like, why did I ever do this? And I said to Mom later, Mom, what were you thinking? She goes, well, that's how I feel. And she wasn't going to sugarcoat it for Bob or anybody else. Poor Dad. I don't know if it was like he had been struck by a thunderbolt. And it was the only time I ever saw Dad speechless in my life. But it was just typical Bob being Bob. And again, because they were from Wisconsin, I think there was a connection there. And, I told people, and I know, Jim, you got to work with them and we're close with Bob. People around the country have no idea the loss, Bob. It's been felt and still is being felt in the state of Wisconsin. Of all the people that have ever come out of that state, he is the most iconic figure ever. It's the most devastating loss people in that state have ever had. That being said, Bob had an incredible life. All of us would sign up right now to live until we're 90, be as healthy for the most part as Bob was until the last few years when he battled cancer and still kept working. He had an incredible life. No one ever got the most out of life. But that being said, I grew up in the Vince Lombardi era with the Green Bay Packers when they never lost. And he's bigger than Vince Lombardi, Bart Starr, Jim Taylor, Robin Yount, Paul Molitor, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Elroy Hirsch, some of the greats that have come out of that state. That the legacy of Bob will never be surpassed in that state. And I think it's, again, how he treated people and how when you're from Wisconsin and you think Wisconsin's good enough that you never need to leave, that resonates with people there more so than anywhere else.
I 100% agree with you on the statement that he made without saying a word about how much he loved Wisconsin and the city of Milwaukee. George Steinbrenner made many a run at Bob to try and get him to go to New York. He would have been a perfect fit in that market. And Bob was just like, no, I'm a Milwaukee guy. I'm not leaving Milwaukee. And I mean, he's a guy that on bus rides, when you get the hotel, it's time to jump on the bus to head for the ballpark. And Bob would be, always right there up at the front of the bus. And there might be four other people on the bus, me and the traveling secretary and a trainer, and there's hardly anybody there. And Bob, there's nobody to entertain, but he just goes to the four people that are there, and he's walking up and down the aisle, just making jokes. And I mean, it was his DNA that he had to make anybody that was around him laugh every single day.
Yeah.
I mean, what could be better than that?
I was always very envious of yourself, of Corey, of Pat Hughes, all the guys that got to work with Bob. I just can't imagine what that experience was like and how gratifying it had to be for all of you. And I'm sorry for your loss, because I know it's a big loss for you and for all of the people that worked with Bob. And I just think all of us are touched by the fact any of us got to know Bob. He would make a spring training game the funniest event that you've ever been a part of, a game that no one's ever going to remember the score. I used to tell people the worse Milwaukee played, the funnier Bob was, because you never turned off a baseball game Bob was doing because you didn't want to miss what he might say. And
right.
The other thing, Jim, that I marveled at with Bob was how relevant he stayed with today's player. The way you saw Christian Yelich, the reaction he had last year, because I knew at that time what was going on with Bob, but was not going to say anything. They didn't want people saying anything. That's when I think Bob really was honest with the guys. I'm not going to see you again. They had suffered a devastating loss to the Mets to end their season, but they were more devastated after meeting with Bob. And for Bob to be relevant at age 90 with kids in their mid-20s, and that's a gift that none of us have other than Bob.
No, he was an amazing individual. I got to be very good friends with him. And someday we'll have to sit down over a couple of glasses of milk, and I'll tell you a bunch of great stories because they're plentiful. But we're focused on you, though, because congratulations on the induction into the Hall of Fame. And again,
thank you.
Richly deserved honor.
Thank you, Jim.
Probably overdue. I'm sure it is.
No,
overdue.
guys, the guys that should be in there, there's more that should be in there that aren't in there. And like I say, we've been very fortunate, very humbled by it. And I thank you. But I still don't know how it happened. I didn't have to pay anybody. So it's stunning to me. But like I said, we're extremely grateful. And the people there, I wished, Jim, everybody could experience what we experienced, but also in this world of cynicism and negativity and some of the things we even do to our own game that make you go, why are we torching our own game? When you're in Cooperstown and you see how that city is and how it's a timepiece. I mean, Jane Forbes Clark's done an incredible job in keeping it so unique, unlike any other Hall of Fame in any other city. And then to see the Hall of Fame players come back, and you're at the Hotel Otesaga out by the lake, and Joe Mauer's playing wiffle ball with everyone's child. And you're like, this is why we love our game. It still gets back to dads playing with their kids or moms playing with their children. And the Hall of Fame players out there with the kids playing wiffle ball. Boy, when you see that, you realize how special our game really is.
It's interesting that you pulled Cooperstown and New York sort of into the same sentence because, in Cooperstown, they think the game is perfect as it is. It was perfect 50 years ago and 70 years ago, and it's still perfect today. And in New York, they're just, they can't help themselves. They just want to tweak it and tinker with it. And I can make this little nuanced change. And it's not nuanced at all to those of us who love the game. Any change you make can be huge for us and all baseball fans as well. Before I let you go, I want to congratulate you also on incorporating the words of your mother in her conversation with Bob Uecker into the close of your speech. Can you tell fans what you said as you were signing off? From the induction?
I'm trying to think back. You know what, Jim? People have said, "Have you watched?" And I said, "I'll never watch that speech." Just, yeah, it's just too emotional. You worry about it for literally 8 months. You don't want to disappoint people and whatnot, but I still don't feel that I belong in Cooperstown. But kind of the way I ended it was, I guess Mom was right. We'll take what we can get, and whether I belong there or not, we're very grateful for it. I had incredible parents. That's at the end of the day, that this world needs family structure. That's where we've gone astray. Not for me to get on a soapbox. I'll let your minister, your rabbi, your priest take care of that. But, family is still so important. And I had incredible parents, incredible siblings that taught us a work value, a work ethic. But more important, as we've told our own kids, your family units, when everybody is doubting you or telling you how, horse manure you are, your family is what will still believe in you. My parents always believed in me, whether I was doing the Jefferson County 4-H fair or the Watertown Goslings. They just said, have a passion, love what you're doing. And I had as much fun doing Friday night basketball and football games and going to fish fries in Wisconsin and having beers afterwards with the coaches and whatnot, as I've had, doing baseball. And I think you need to enjoy where you are. And Mom and Dad taught me that. And, hopefully we've taught that to our children and our grandchildren, because again, man, Cooperstown, like I said, when you're around people that love the game, you realize how special it is to be a part of it.
Before we let you go, we're going to do a little feature here, Tom, that we do in every episode of Fans First, which is called Flip the Switch. So you and I have a nice, comfortable conversation and talk about a lot of things. And then all of a sudden, I'm going to change the subject and put you on some other road for a quick second to see what you think of that. And in this case, I'm going to go back to the 4-H and say, Tom Hamilton, if you had actually flunked out of broadcasting by messing up that 4-H contest and you could no longer be a broadcaster, that is no longer a possibility for you, what would you have done with your life?
I'd probably something with math. If I was good in it, if you want to call it that. Probably. I don't know if I would have been an accountant or something with math, but I thought I was going to be Hank Aaron. That didn't work out.
Well, it turned out just fine for you. So congratulations. Thank you so much for all your time. I know
Thank you, Jim.
A million interviews and you'll have a million more ahead of you. But spending some time with me and our audience is very much appreciated.
I'm a big fan of you, your work, and I really, grateful you would have me on. So thanks, Jim.
Thank you, Tom. God bless you. And want to thank everybody for joining us on today's episode of Fans First, a sports podcast with our special guest, the newly minted Hall of Famer, Tom Hamilton. Don't forget to follow me on X and Instagram and Facebook. We ask you to please subscribe to our Fans First YouTube channel. If you like our Fans First content, you can help us by making sure you're subscribed to all of our social networks. We really appreciate it. Don't forget about our Fans First website, fansfirstpodcast.com. To be included as a guest on an episode, send your voice memo, video file, or written memo to jim@fansfirstpodcast.com. Please keep your submissions to no more than 45 seconds in length. We want you to be a part of our show, but not be the whole show. So glad that you joined us for today's episode with Tom Hamilton. We look forward to seeing you again very soon right here on Fans First, a sports podcast.
Stay tuned, stay passionate, and keep celebrating the sport you love. Visit us at fansfirstpodcast.com to explore more. Sign up for our newsletter to receive exclusive updates and follow the podcast on social media to join our growing community of sports enthusiasts. Your voice matters to us, so don't hesitate to share your thoughts and connect with fellow fans. See you next time.